So this show is called Misinformation. And it's the true and not so true early information about AIDS. And in particular, it has to do with the misinformation that came out about AIDS and the similarities between the misinformation that came out about COVID. So when I first started here about 3 years ago, somebody pointed out to me in the archive, not on the public-facing shelves, there were about 200 or 300 books about AIDS that a medical doctor had to come in and recommended that the books be taken off the shelf. And so they're available. They are still in our card catalog, but they were taken off the shelf. And the reason why they were taken off the shelf was they did not want someone to seroconvert today and read some of this information, which was factually incorrect. It was information that came out in the 1980s and the 1990s. And so I thought, what can we do about this? I mean, it's important that an organization would save this stuff. It has to be saved because it's part of our history. But I didn't quite know what to do with it. That was before COVID hit. So when COVID hit, we were all, shocked, and we didn't understand what was going on. There was this terrible thing that was happening, and we were hearing news about this might be a cure or how it might be transmitted or these strange things. And then, of course, it blew up into this giant thing about the vaccine and all of that stuff. And I thought this might be an opportunity to look at the similarities between these things. So what I did is I took the books and then I went through things that were in the archive in order to be able to try to make this story. So just to put some historical context around it, the first public awareness of HIV happened in July of 1981, probably July 3rd, and it was in the New York Times. It was an article talking about a mysterious illness that was causing cancer in otherwise healthy young men, both in New York and in Los Angeles. And it was a bit of a downer of an article. Of course, the word AIDS did not exist at the time, but apparently I've not been able to find it. But from what I've read, the Village Voice actually attacked the Times at the time, saying, what a bummer for everyone's going out to Fire Island for the weekend. And what the hell are you doing putting this story out here about people getting AIDS or getting this mysterious illness? People paid as much attention to it as they did. But here you see, this is now January 1982. The New York Native, a publication, if you can just bring the camera a little bit over here, a publication which was really geared toward gay men. Here they're asking the quick question, do poppers cause cancer? Now, there'll be school groups who'll come in here and I'll say poppers, they have no idea what I'm talking about, but you don't have to raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. Perhaps you want to raise your hand if you don't, and I'll be happy to explain it. But of course, it was one of the similarities that people found. There was no relationship between poppers and cancer. It was like saying, higher cancer rates in cities that have a major league baseball team. It's just a statistical fact. One didn't have anything to do with the other. But so they're seeing these links here. Here you're seeing in the same time period, this is the gay community news in Boston. Here that they're saying, this is January 1982, the new gay diseases are concern and not panic. This is actually, those words were used by Joe Biden at the beginning of this year with regard to Omicron, concern but not panic. Here you're seeing just 6 months later, a publication here in Florida in which they're giving a combination of vitamins to create something called immunase. And this is, I always love this part. If you can't change your lifestyle, you can give your bodies the tool it needs to keep you healthy. So meaning if you weren't going to practice safer sex practices, this was going to provide you with the cure. Then there was this whole thing that was happening where people were saying, because the medical community did not discover the connection, the expected connection in the 1980s between viruses and bacteria and cancer, that this was all just a hoax. And that it was a hoax for scientists and researchers to get more funding. And they were coming out and saying syphilis caused AIDS. which of course, I mean, that's of course, syphilis is from a bacteria, HIV is a virus, two very different things. Here's somebody in Chicago is being arrested for claiming that aloe vera is going to cure herpes or is going to cure you of AIDS. Here they're talking 1983, a year and a half into it, about an AIDS remedy being tested. We've heard about 3 people being cured, quote unquote, in the last month or so, but here they're actually talking about a remedy happening. AIDS, the HIV myth. I mean, this is the same kind of thing that we're actually seeing today. Here we're seeing vitamin C and function, the vitamin C function in connection with AIDS. And this, for those of you who have enough gray hair, here you're looking at a picture from the Eagle in San Francisco in 1983. And here we're seeing somebody with KS. This is a sign many of us saw at that particular time. I mean, people would not go out. And again, here you're seeing that the fact that vitamin C could possibly be curing it. Just to keep moving along. Oh, for those of you who are not familiar, here we see United Airlines saying that it wouldn't allow gay flight attendants anymore because they all had AIDS. Here you see the New York native telling people not to take the HIV test at the time. And of course, people were concerned about, number one, there was no cure. And number two, there was great concern about whether or not your confidentiality would be compromised in some way. The AIDS cult, the truth about the epidemic, and I'll end with these two. Well, I always have to point this one out. No lesbian blood. Again, gay community news talking about Orange County, California. And because it was a gay and lesbian organization, they were saying lesbians could not give the blood as well. And of course, for many of us, that's still an issue today. There are still restrictions on gay men being able to give blood. Hopefully we'll see them go, but like I say, ask any straight man for him to say he hasn't had sex in the last 3 months before he can give blood. How is it fair to any of us? I mean, it's just absurd. I'll end with these two. This book, The AIDS Time Bomb. There are millions with AIDS and other diseases related to dirty polio and other vaccines. These are the dirty vaccines that are out there. And the nation's first politically protected disease. The theory here is that the media and that intellectual elites were creating AIDS as a false thing that it didn't exist. By last count, there are over 700,000 people in the United States who have died of AIDS since this happened. Worldwide, 13 million. And we see the same thing happening with regard to what's happened with COVID. We look at the stories every day in the paper to see the number of the people who are sick and the people who are putting misinformation out there and not doing the right